poem called The Need. To what hope will we turn as ISIS bombs and Syria burns? What now will steady our knees as Putin's tanks roll up on Europe's east? What will hold us together as Brexit divides, goodwill subsides, and fear multiplies? Where will we go as the earth takes revenge, as deserts stretch, as forests shrink, as oceans rise, as coasts sink? What will keep us well as the clock on antibiotics ticks down, as the odds of spreading plague climb up? But that is all out there. Inside, we live and die by Facebook likes. We wait to see our statuses retweeted, our self-esteem so evidently depleted. We lack. We care so much how others view our body. Doctors are calling it a mental pathology. We lack. We can't bear to stop, to listen to our thoughts in the silence. We can't look in the mirror without feeling inadequate. We can't maintain a conversation without checking our texts. How will we learn to live in our world, love each other, and sit well with ourselves?
Good morning. My name is Aaron, and just while I'm getting my stuff ready, I'll tell you a little bit about myself because, apologies to whoever's Bible this is. Just so you're not thinking, who's this guy who's just got up to start talking? My name is Aaron, and I'm one of the leaders at Christ First Watford as well. I'm married to Megan, who you can just about see there, and I've got two little girls. I've got a little girl called Lara, who's shy, and a little girl called Millie, who isn't. And it's my job this morning to tell you a little bit about Christmas, which is a pretty good job, particularly if you like Christmas, and I really like Christmas. And it's especially enjoyable now that I've got some daughters, some children to enjoy it with. And I wonder, if I mentioned Christmas, what does that make you think of? When someone mentions Christmas, what's your reaction? So I say Christmas and you say, it's too early, it's still September. Perhaps you get excited and you think about the presents that you're going to get and how happy people will be. Perhaps you think about the good food. Oh, stuffing, turkey, cranberry sauce. It's good. Perhaps you think about fun times learning a new game, or Uncle Tom's impression of a gorilla during charades. Or perhaps it's dread at the thought of thinking, oh, what am I going to get them? They've got everything, or their tastes are too expensive. Perhaps it's dread at preparing mountains of food for people, or the social gymnastics required to keep everyone happy on Christmas Day. Or they can't sit together, but they can't sit together either. We'll have to do 2 Christmases. Maybe it's sadness at the thought of a loved one no longer with you. Or maybe it's joy at children's smiling faces as they create a snowman, which we haven't had a snowy Christmas for a while, but maybe it's that thought that comes to your mind when someone says Christmas. I wonder what you'd say if I asked you, what do Christians think about Christmas? Maybe a candlelit service on Christmas Eve. Maybe a nativity scene, not quite like the one that we saw earlier, but a nativity scene. Maybe someone badgering you about the real meaning of Christmas. Now, I don't presume to speak for all Christians everywhere, but when I think of Christmas, I think of this. Now, why do I think of that, you would ask? Why do I think of the Lion King? Well, it's because in the readings that we heard earlier, and as Daniel said a little bit about, Christmas is about a light dawning on the world. The true light was coming into the world. That was what was read out earlier. That a light would dawn upon those in deep darkness. So why do I think of the sunrise at the beginning of The Lion King, or the opening to 2001, A Space Odyssey, as the sun appears? Because at this time of year, when I look around, both physically and metaphorically, things can seem dark, can't they? I can remember having a job where, when I started work in the winter, it was dark. And I was inside all day, and when I got outside, it was dark. I'm sure the sun had risen at some point during the day, but I never got to see it. In the Bible, darkness is often used as a poetic or a shorthand way of talking about evil and ignorance. And we still do that today, don't we? We still use that darkness as a shorthand way of saying evil or ignorance. For example, if I was to say to you, what are those side bits on that lightsaber for? You might respond with, I'm in the dark on that one, I don't know. Maybe you can enlighten me. And in pretty much any story you can think of, darkness is a representation of the baddies. The baddies are the dark side. In Star Wars, the dark side is the bad side. So what is this darkness in our world? Well, firstly, it means that our world contains evil and suffering. In that poem that was read, it's not meant to be a downer, but there's problems with the world. There are problems in this world. Perhaps you've got a co-worker who always takes too long on their break. That's injustice. Perhaps there's a bully at school who always picks on you. That's violence and injustice again. There are people this Christmas who will be homeless and hungry on Christmas Day. There are problems in the world. There's evil and there's ignorance. We don't know how to fix those problems. We don't know how to fix them all. Even our best efforts don't quite end up measuring up. Education, scientific advance, a few people being generous don't seem to stem the tide. When we solely rely on human effort to solve the problem, things tend to not get resolved. In the reading we heard from Isaiah, it's chapter 9, in Isaiah 8, it talks about the people looking to one another and the resources that their land has and can provide, and they can't solve the problems. That they've turned to one another and they've only made the problem worse. And then in Isaiah 9, as was read, there's this promise of a light dawning on them. This outside intervention, much like the sun is outside of our world, a light would dawn on them. And how would that happen? Well, a child would be born. A son would be given. We need some outside intervention, and that's where Christmas comes in. Why do I think of the Lion King sunrise? Because Christmas is the sun dawning on the darkness of the world. Christmas is God's reminder to the whole world that hope is here. Have you ever wondered why such a fuss is made over a baby? In the UK, there's a statistic, and there's a TV show named after the statistic, one born every minute. There's a baby born every minute, statistically, in the UK. And statistically, 50% of those, give or take a few percent, are boys. So what makes a baby boy born 2,000 years ago, quite a distance away, so special? Well, because Jesus was no ordinary baby. Jesus is that child talked about. It says a light has dawned on the people, and it was because Jesus was born. In the reading from John that we heard, it talks about Jesus being the light. It describes Jesus as the Word and the light. It says that the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Jesus' arrival was the dawning of a new chapter in the history of the world. It meant that darkness wasn't going to win, that evil and ignorance weren't going to win. So how is Jesus' birth like the sunrise? Well, I don't know if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, but there's a good line in the book which doesn't quite make it to the film. They twist it and they butcher it, which is not unusual for adaptations of books. But there's a line in there where it says that dawn is ever the hope of men. There's this battle going on, and they've been fighting all night, and they're waiting for the dawn because something might change in the day. The dawn brings hope. Hope that the sun will bring life and truth and joy. Because the sun brings life, the physical sun. It fuels the growth and life on earth. Plants and animals are reliant on the sun. And in fact, we all are, because if the sun suddenly was to go out, very quickly we would realise the planet would be frozen and we would all be very, very cold. The sun brings life. And Jesus gives spiritual life. Jesus said that he came into the world to give people life, and life to its fullest. Not in a restrictive way, life to its fullest, enhancing and enriching our lives by showing and enabling us to live in a way of light, to live in the way God intended. In fact, the Bible says that we're spiritually dead until Jesus gives us life. Jesus can make us spiritually alive. The sun gives light, and light shows the truth. We live in a world that relies heavily on light, so you sort of look around this room. It looks great from here. It might be worth you popping up and having a look before you leave. But we rely heavily on lights. How many times have you switched on a light in your house without even thinking about it? How many times have you driven home in the dark and switched on the lights in your car? Imagine there were no lights in cars. The journey home would get very interesting, wouldn't it? I can remember as a child swimming in a swimming pool at night, a pool that I'd been in the day and there was no problem, and at night an irrational fear struck me that there was a shark in the swimming pool. Now, there wasn't a shark in the swimming pool, but irrationally I just had to get out. In the day, the light, it removes that element of fear of the unknown. Jesus is the truth. The light reveals the truth. Jesus is the truth. Jesus called himself the truth. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. In the reading from John earlier, as I said, Jesus was described as the Word become flesh. Now, the Word is also refers to the Bible. And the Bible isn't just a book, it's the truth of God revealing who he is and who we are. And Jesus is the embodiment of that revelation of God. He is the truth. The sun also brings joy. This is literally true. If you live in a country where there's months where there is less sunlight during the winter or for a period of time during the year. Statistically, in those countries, more people suffer with depression. There's a condition called SAD, which is people affected by a lack of vitamin D from sunlight. When I used to walk to work, on my route there was a particular point actually on the ring road of town where the sun shone down in the winter. It was just the perfect angle. It wasn't obstructed by Intu or the Harlequin. It wasn't obstructed by any other buildings. And I would turn to face the sun, and I'd just close my eyes and just let the sun shine on my face just for a few minutes before I walked into work. Not minutes, a minute or two maybe. So if you ever saw someone standing on the ring road, not on the actual road, but just inside of it, staring at the sun with their eyes closed and a big grin on their face, that was probably me. So I'm not really that weird. But the sun brings joy, doesn't it? I think, we think of the summer, kids playing in the garden, water splashing around, and there's sunlight. It brings joy. The sun brings joy. And Jesus brings joy. Jesus brings the joy of knowing we can be accepted by God. We can have a meaningful relationship with God. The God who created everything. We can have the joy of knowing that we can turn our faces to God and not be turned away. Jesus is the divine light of the world. He brings new spiritual life. He reveals the truth we need to know, and he gives joy that lasts. This morning I want to tell you that hope is here. And I want to invite you to turn your face towards the sun. The birth of Jesus Christ was the dawning of a new period in history. It was the dawning of a time of hope, a hope that the human race could be reconciled to God. And Christmas is a time of hope, isn't it? We start looking forward to the next year. We think, maybe next year will be better. Maybe I'll lose that bit of weight. Maybe I'll get fit. Maybe I'll stick to my resolutions and only drink 2 cups of coffee a day. This morning I want to tell you that there is a hope that won't disappoint. And I hope your resolutions don't disappoint. But I'll tell you there is a hope that definitely won't disappoint you. And that is the hope of the good news of Jesus Christ. And that good news is this: that Jesus was God become man to save the human race. That there's a darkness that he overcame as the light of the world. The good news is this: that the wrong things that you and I have done, Jesus has taken the punishment for those upon himself. He did that when he went to the cross, as that song says, that when Jesus was born, God saw the end result. He saw the cross. And it wasn't that Jesus' life was demanded of him, it's that he laid it down as a sacrifice for you and I, so that we can be reconciled to God, so that the problem of our wrongdoing can be taken away. Now maybe you have never heard something like that before. Maybe you've heard it lots of times. Well, I want to say to you that I've got that on your chair there should be an invitation to a course called Alpha, which says if you've got questions about life, then you can ask them, you can come and talk about them, you can say, what did he mean when he said that there's wrongdoing that causes a problem between me and God? You can ask those questions. After this talk, there'll be a short video. But I just recommend the Alpha course to you, which we are going to be running as a church shortly. And also, if you've got a last-minute Christmas idea that you need for yourself or someone, I would recommend this book. It's called Hidden Christmas by a guy called Timothy Keller. And it explores some of the things that I've said this morning in a bit more depth. It's not a particularly thick book. It's quite enjoyable to read. I'd recommend that to you. But I'll leave you with this, that hope is here. And through Jesus Christ, we can know that hope.